You want to avoid paying taxes in the UAE because you're a multi-million-dollar business and you make millions of dollars of profit, and you don't want to pay the 9% corporate tax as well as do the bookkeeping. Simply set up a US LLC. Wrong. I've seen it so many times and it's actually hurting me. And it's absolutely embarrassing if people are still recommending it or actually doing it, because this is considered tax fraud according to the UAE tax laws. So if you're a resident in the UAE, it doesn't really matter if you set up a free zone company, a mainland company, or actually an offshore company like a US LLC or a company in the Seychelles or whatever the case may be. If you are actually managing the company within the UAE, it is considered a tax subject in the UAE. I will put the link down below where you can read it yourself. I will also put up a screenshot where you can read the exact tax code that will explain it. But basically, it's a very common international tax law or tax principle that offshore companies are still considered tax resident locally where you are if the company is effectively managed and operated within the country. So basically, it doesn't really matter if you set up an offshore company like a US LLC, as long as you're the manager and the owner, especially the manager, and you manage it within the UAE, it is considered tax subject within the UAE, meaning you have to pay corporate tax, meaning you have to do bookkeeping, tax registration, and all sorts of other, and meet all the other requirements. So it's very foolish to think you can trick the government in the UAE or any government in the world, because this is a very common tax principle. It applies to almost any country, that you just set up an offshore company, don't pay taxes, don't do bookkeeping or whatever the case may be, and then think you're good. That's not how it works. And like I said, it's very common. It's actually an OECD standard, and the abbreviation of it is OE, and the short code for it is POEM, which means place of effective management, meaning if the key decisions of the company are made in a country and it is actually operated in a country, meaning that you as a general manager lead and make the primary decisions of the company, then the company is taxed in this country, in this case the UAE. Even if you're selling products online, your customers are in Europe, it doesn't really matter, you're still taxed in the UAE if you as the manager are based in the UAE and you operate the business basically within or from the UAE. And that's it. There's nothing more to add to it other than if you're not doing it, then the tax authorities are definitely coming after you. As of now, they're not really that much after it because the corporate tax in UAE is still quite new, so it will take a couple of months or maybe years to fully prosecute all those offshore companies and tax evasion strategies. But I just want to put it out there to not do that at all, because even if you don't get a fine this year or next year, a couple of years later down the road, they find out about it and then they will fine you. There's high fines on it. Actually, it's considered tax fraud, so there may even be a jail sentence for it depending on the severity of the tax evasion. So definitely something to be avoided. I just want to put it out there. Like I said, you can read it up yourself. It's a very common tax principle amongst many countries around the world. There's one gray zone I want to mention. If you're doing business and you're below 1 million dirham your revenue, so basically you're a low revenue company in the UAE, meaning you don't even meet the requirements to form a company which is 1 million dirham and above, then you're required to file a company for income purposes. That's kind of like a gray zone, but still, if you're doing business in the UAE, then you should definitely register your company properly. Don't try to evade taxes. And I think everybody knows the UAE is one of the most advanced countries out there, especially when it comes to tracking things, tracking your messages, your banking, and all sorts of other things. Then you should definitely take care of it, especially if you're using banking options that are part of the CRS. The United States are not part of it, but there's many banks that are part of the CRS and they will directly report to the UAE. So definitely avoid that. And I don't even understand it, because the UAE is still quite tax friendly and you're most likely moving to the UAE because of low taxes. There are still 0% on your personal tax, so you can pay out yourself a salary, usually $10, $15, $20,000 or upwards. So in certain cases even higher, so be evaluated on a case-by-case basis. But so on average you will get hundreds of thousands of dollars tax-free out of your company legally in the UAE. So I don't even see the purpose of it. Obviously, if you're making millions of dollars of profit per year, I might understand it, but still you have a tax threshold. There's still a lot of business expenses you can basically deduct from your company and lower the profit. So there's a lot of ways to legally know your taxes. If you're interested in that, obviously you can consult. You can simply click the link down below, book a consultation with me, and we see how we can help you best with our local tax experts in the UAE. I just want to make sure that everybody got this message. Don't try to evade taxes by simply starting a US LLC or another offshore company. It's very foolish, and it's not even a gray zone in that sense if you're above a certain revenue threshold, because it's actually very clearly written in a tax code. And like I said, it's very common practice among many other countries, and it's basically a standard amongst the OECD countries. Hope the video helped you, and if you're interested in tax planning and bookkeeping and other sorts of services like that in the UAE, obviously keep the link down below, book a consultation with me. Looking forward to talk to you. That's it for today's video. See you next time.